Okay, so basically my idea was just, I really enjoyed our talk that we recorded yesterday, and I thought the work that you're doing is very inspirational. and not just because of the technical discoveries, but I'll tell you a little bit about what I've done, but basically I see the humanity and the whole biosphere right now in a very precarious situation. And there are technological problems and a lot of technologies in use that are harmful, but it's not by mistake, which is the problem. And that the research that I've done starting in the 1960s has gotten into, it's mostly been around health and the consciousness issues that led to because of my own severe health problems about 55 years ago or so. But it led into also about a 20-year investigation of the power structure that's been in control of America and most of the world for a long time. And I didn't have any preconceptions because as much as possible, I think science depends on getting rid of those and just being interested in finding out whatever is true. And I found out that the people in charge on a global scale right now, behind the scenes in high corporate positions of power and governments, are malevolent. And most of the issues that are threatening the survival of humanity and the environment and the biosphere are intentional. And it took me a long time to really figure out their motivations and the reasons and things like that. But I think that our opportunity and our challenge is to have things go not the way that the power structure wants them to go. And instead of global destruction, to bring in some kind of a renaissance, if we can. And the reason I was inspired by your work is I think that the spirit behind it is exactly what is needed in the world. And it was, for example, your openness to the public 24/7. You want to be transparent. You want to find out these ancient aspects of wisdom that are reflected in the technologies of the pyramids. And just the motivation to serve humanity is something that would heal almost everything if it was shared all over the place. So I thought it might be useful to just give you a quick rundown of some things that I found, and then if any of them are of any use to you, I would love to be of some kind of help. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yes.
And a lot of what I'm saying is way outside the box of conventional understanding, and I'm conversant with the language of modern science. I'm also involved in another PhD program right now myself, but I was past what they're doing in PhD work in health sciences in 1970, and the only reason that I'm doing more of it now is that the additional credential might allow me to be listened to in certain circles that could be useful. Other than that, my involvement in so-called higher education now is mostly an exercise in keeping my mouth closed as much as I can. And it's very difficult, but I'm doing the best I can. So anyway, what I found, and my one of my reactions to your discussion yesterday was that, remember we were talking about the filling up of the tunnels, and you were saying that, well, maybe there were people trying to stop the misuse of those technologies. And I just wanted to bring up another possible explanation in the form of that the tunnels were filled up to stop the correct use of those technologies. And I think that you had said that it happened maybe about 5,000 years ago, something like that.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Which is, relatively recent considering the history of those structures. But at that time, it coalesces with an investigation that I did of the current power structure that is behind the scenes operating in the world now that people don't see. and that goes back at least 4,000 to 5,000 years, and more likely at least 15. And it ties into old stories of the sinking of the big continent in the Atlantic, which, as far as I can tell, and you may have correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 14,000 years ago is probably when that continent sank. Does that seem accurate to you?
That is correct, yes.
And excuse me, my throat is getting worn out here. I think the sinking of it was connected to misuse of technologies at that time by the same people that are doing this now. And in fact, it may literally be some of the same people. And the reason I say that is that I have been really affected by the fact that when I was born and slightly after, I had memory of being here before. And I'm not asking anyone to agree with me or believe in that or anything like that. That's not scientific to just believe things, but it was my experience, like you remember last week, not a belief system. And it's really had an impact on my investigations during this lifetime, because it's continuous. So I think that what may have happened is that the technologies in the pyramids were designed to maintain and enhance some things about the electromagnetic atmosphere of the planet, because that atmosphere interacts with thought forms, and it has to do with bringing in direct inspiration to human beings from higher levels of consciousness. Just the opposite of what they appear to be doing with the CERN project right now, where they're trying to break through to unfriendly dimensions and bring in some of the same things as resulted in the destruction in the Atlantean period. So I hope this doesn't sound too crazy to you, but I just felt it would be all right to share some of it.
Exactly. Good. I'm glad. Well, you mentioned several very important things. The first one about if what's been done to us, humanity, has been intentional.
Yes.
And I would agree totally.
Wow, okay. Most people would think I'm crazy for saying that.
From the technical standpoint, when we see the technology that we use, for example, the electricity, in the US we have 110 volts and 60, hertz. Here in Europe we have 220 volts.
Right.
If we touch the wire with this electricity, it would kill us.
Yes.
The next thing, I mentioned yesterday, the cell phones, they operate at 0.85 gigahertz, extremely bad frequency for us. The next thing, the Wi-Fi, it's the worst, 4 or 5 gigahertz.
Right.
It's really killing us. It's really causing very serious diseases to us.
Right.
So, when you are close to laptops, computers, TVs, any of the gadgets that we have in our daily life, they are so bad for us. Mm-hmm. It's simply impossible that you would have invention of so many different things, different technological devices, and they are literally, all of them, bad to our health. It has been intentionally bad for us. Because if you have such an attack to the brain cells, we've been, closing them down a certain percentage. It means that the process of information is slower. We think less. I remember a few decades ago, it was much easier to talk to people. They seemed much more intelligent than today. Today you need to repeat stuff 2, 3, 4 times until apologize to the public, to the different countries. But, the chemtrails phenomena is still going on. on so many blue skies in Bosnia or Croatia or Germany or United States or other countries. You can see those planes with the chemtrails spraying and bringing disease to the air, land, and the water.
Right.
So they've been polluting our beautiful green planet for decades now, again, because of their control. Now, with so much aluminum and some other traces of heavy metals in the air, they can easily manipulate with the climate.
Right.
The next thing, when this aluminum comes to the surface, when it comes to us, humans, such a very small pieces of aluminum, they come to our body, they literally go through our skin. The aluminum causes our brain to work slower. Again, manipulation. So we can see that they've been poisoning our soil, they've been poisoning our water. In 1990s, during the war in Bosnia first, and then during the war in Serbia, NATO was bombarding, Bosnian territory with the Serbs, and then Kosovo territory again with the Serbs. And they were using the radioactive shells and bombs. Why? Two largest water reservoirs in Europe are below Kosovo's ground and below Bosnian ground. So we can see an intentional effort that's been going on by the elites for a very, very long time. And this is a shame. Now, the first step that the public has to do is to get the true information. Mm-hmm. We need to share the knowledge of what's been done to us. And then the next step will come, once people realize, what's been done, they're going to start some actions. But I think that first step is very important. When it comes to pyramids, it's extremely important to realize that pyramids do have abilities to remove some of the problems that's been, done to us in the last few decades. For example, I did mention that with the pyramid energy, the energy beam going through the top of the pyramid,
yes,
we are able to repair our atmosphere if there is a hole in the ozone layer. With the pyramid beam, you are able to clear the sky even if it is sprayed by the chemtrails. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. With the pyramid energy, we are able to improve our DNA. With the pyramid energy, we are able to improve the molecular structure of the water, of the food, of our bioenergy fields. So probably you are right when you said that a few thousand years back, somebody wanted to stop the positive influence of the pyramid energy. And they keep the pyramid knowledge from us. They simply hide it. And if we imagine a different world where people get realize that the pyramid energy is clear and clean and free and has so many benefits to our daily lives, mm-hmm. to us, to water, to food, to animals, to plants, to anything, then people would, be starting using more and more of it. Instead, everything we do, like I said yesterday, with the energy is wrong, the energy sources, everything they do with our health, making us, people who just keep spending the pills,
right,
which never resolve the real problem, the cause of the illness. But for example, you got the cold, you go to the doctor, they prescribe you antibiotics.
Right.
I mean, the cold will be gone in 3 days anyway. But with antibiotics, what happens? Your immunity goes down.
Oh, yeah.
It goes down, and then the next disease hits. You go to the doctor, he gives you another pills. Now you take another pills, and you're not getting rid of your diseases. You're getting nervous, your blood pressure goes up. You go to the doctor, you get another pills for high blood pressure, and so on and so forth. So all our lives, really, we are getting the pills that are not really helping us with our health, but us spending so much money for the pills, we make pharmaceutical lobby very happy. Mm-hmm. So imagine that we are able to find a cure with the herbal pills or remedies, if we are able to use the pyramid energy to keep our health in really good condition, and no side effects, right. The very healthy way, very quick way. So I would say we have all means to resolve our daily problem. Instead, the elites simply make us go another way. And finally, as humans, of course, we have many more abilities, not just 5 physical senses, spiritual senses. We could see more, hear more, we could travel through time. We can, imagine the world where everybody has the ability to use the astral projection and travel mm-hmm. through time. Mm-hmm. So instead of going to schools and learning about Napoleon, when he was born, what fights he fought, right. We simply go back to the end of 18th, beginning of 19th century and see for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
A different world. Mm-hmm. So once you realize that your abilities are almost unlimited, why would we need those elites above us? Why would we be giving our rights to political elites, to religious elites, to corporate elites, to financial elites, to media elites, like we've been doing for the last 7,000-8,000 years? So simply the world will be different, and then, with our advanced spiritual abilities, with different approach to food that we eat, to liquids, especially water that we drink, mm-hmm. If we use high vibrational food and the water and the liquids, if we treat other people differently, with respect, with love, friendship, mm-hmm. our life would be different. Instead of watching TVs with all the problems, they start TVs with the wars and the violence and the fires and mm-hmm. killing and so on. Negative news all the time, so they keep us on the surface. Instead, if we are able to go deep, we would realize that the life and the world should look differently. And it's up to us. Every one of us has to realize that, change, and then we start changing other people.
And I think the change of other people happens automatically if you change yourself. Mm. Also, a couple of things you said. One is about the technologies intentionally designed to be harmful. You can really see that with the newer cars and airplanes, because they're basically moving microwave ovens. I was just talking about that with Ken this morning, and I called a high-tech spy company in Canada that is good about debugging technologies, and they said there's no way to get it out of the new cars because they're basically so integrated with wireless technology now that they wouldn't operate anymore without it. The same with agriculture, with all the chemicals that are totally not necessary. If they would grind up the rock and use that as the mineral fertilizer and then other things after that, it would be incredible. And what you said about the medicine, the same way, that not only are the more natural remedies from herbs and things possible, but if we are taught the lifestyle mistakes that we're making now, we wouldn't even need the herbal remedies. I mean, super health is our normal condition, and I think not only could we use the pyramid energies for a lot of things, but they represent what the human organism is as well. And the most powerful pyramid is the one that each of us are walking around within our consciousness.
Yes, exactly. You're right, and we are born with the ideal, formula within our body. But then what's been done to us from day one with the vaccines, with the way of living, with the way they, teach us in schools, by media, governments, and so on, they simply, they are taking us away from our real nature.
I think to counteract that, because what I found at the top levels of this intentionality is not money. That's only used to keep the medium levels serving them. At the top levels, it's more of a negative religious nature, and they intend to finish the ceremonial sacrifice of the biosphere, which they're in the midst of now. And I think that it's not something that can practically be opposed successfully by force, and that really doesn't get out of the negative paradigm anyway. However, there are energies, just like you're opening up the pyramid energies, that if we open those up in our consciousness, not in a belief system or a theory, but for real, I think that we can, like you said, change the energy level atmosphere around this planet to the point where the negative thought forms will not really fit in anymore.
Yes, exactly. So it is about really the rise of the global consciousness.
Yes.
So every one of us needs to do his or her own part.
Yeah, exactly. It's really exciting. So, anyway, I just am really grateful for the work that you're doing, and I felt that you would already know about all these things that I wanted to mention, but I just thought that would be good to do. And maybe there's some way in the future that we can help each other.
Yes, yes. Well, the first steps are behind us, and I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely true. And what we're finding is that we're experimenting at this point with, I wouldn't say technology exactly, but with changing the relationship between the consciousness itself and the mind, which is not ourselves, but it's more of an interface between pure spirit, whatever it's called, and the almost infinite information that defines the physical level world. So we needed mind to do that, but it's been working against us because we haven't known how to make it harmonize with what we really need to have happen. And people have mistakenly thought that mind is who they are, and so they've remained subject to its programs. But once you see it as your servant and a living, self-aware being on its own, which it is, then that relationship can be repaired, and then mind has access to all the information which to us is subconscious. To mind it's conscious. And once that becomes an ally, I think there's going to be some really interesting results.
Yes, great.
So, all right, well, let me see. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is in the future, if you ever feel like it, I think that you have some study and knowledge about pyramids in South America as well as in Egypt and Bosnia, right?
Right.
Would you be open at some point to talking to us about those?
Of course.
I think it would be super interesting.
Yes. Yeah, let's do something a couple of months from now.
Okay.
I'll be happy to do that.
Let's do that.
Because there is so much to be told about the Mayan pyramids in Central America, Peruvian, Chinese, Egyptian, the true purpose about the Egyptian pyramids. And not only pyramids, they have wonderful, statues.
Yes.
They have obelisks. They have so many different, stone, different shapes. And there is a reason for that. So instead of what they've been telling us, I think there is a much more important purpose, and of course abilities by the ancients. So a lot to talk about.
I agree. It would be great. The last thing I would want to mention to you is that you talked about the passageway hidden under one of the paws of the Sphinx. And
yes.
Are you familiar with a man who was alive when that was made, named Thoth, Thoth?
Yes, of course.
There's a book that was translated recently, so it could have some inaccuracies in it, from the ancient Egyptian, and it was called the Emerald Tablets.
Yes.
It's not very long, but if you
we can discuss that also. I wrote about them like 15, 20 years ago, so I'll be happy to talk about them.
That would be fun. I would love to.
Yes.
All right. Well, you're probably tired from the day. You need to relax for a while, I suspect.
I always work. When you do something that you love, then, day is simply not enough.
It's recreation.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, have a good night, Sam, and I'm really grateful that you're willing to talk to us. Shall I just try to contact you in a couple of months?
Yes.
Okay. Have a good rest, and we'll talk to you then.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye then.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.